Mac and Mac here with you on Birds 365. Will it be a walkthrough Wednesday? You'll have to tell us that at some point during the day. Are they actually?
Yeah, it's a walkthrough. It's a walkthrough.
They're walking through Cowboy Week, huh?
Yeah, they like it. They don't like us watching practice, to be honest.
Do you assume that they walk through until you guys are told that's enough, you can leave, and then they have an actual practice?
No, they'd get in trouble for that. There's cameras all over the place. There's NFLPA people watching.
Right.
Yeah, you can't do that.
Yeah, that's why I'm saying this is kind of a big week. This is kind of a big game coming up on Sunday. We can get into the specifics of what can and can't happen depending on whether they win or lose. I would think this would be a week they'd try and actually get a full practice in. But what the hell do I know? I know to call Mike Gill when I need West Virginia inside information. I texted him on Saturday morning. I'm doing my handicapping to make my college picks. And I couldn't believe that they were 6-point underdog to Central Florida on Saturday.
Central Florida on Saturday, yeah.
And I'm going, wait a minute. West Virginia's actually been the better team. Central Florida played well last week, and West Virginia ended that game against Houston a couple weeks ago. So I thought it was recency bias. And I said, wait a minute. West Virginia should actually be a favorite in this game. Let me see. I know I got an unbiased West Virginia guy that I know. Let me see what Mike goes. So I said, text him and said, you think West Virginia's going to win this week? And he said, I'd take the points, that's for sure. Yeah, I kind of like West Virginia points, and they won the game outright. So I know Mike and I both did well selecting the Mountaineers this past week. Were you in a good mood all week because of that game weekend, Gill?
Yeah, I mean, well, in college football, once your team loses, you're kind of like malaise through the rest of the season. You know, it's kind of. I will say, as an unbiased West Virginia, and my father being a mediator, I would say Rasul Douglas. I tend to lean with John McMullen on this one.
You're another one who believes it's determined by height as to whether you can play in the.
Well, I mean, not even remotely what I said. But
but it's like that almost in all sports, where based on your dimensions and size, you are pigeonholed almost into a certain spot. I mean, that's why 6-foot quarterbacks don't get a lot of opportunities. That doesn't mean there's a rarity out there. I'm not sure Rasul Douglas is the rarity. He's a guy that's, when you're taller, there's a lot more of you that has to shift and turn and move, and you get matched up with guys who are not as tall as you. They're quicker and faster. So it's hard for you to make the same twitches. I don't know too many 6'2" guys who have that same speed in a short burst that some of those slot receivers have. That's why teams don't put 6'2" guys in the slot. They're putting 5'11" guys in the slot.
Yeah, Avante, and remember, the Eagle slot corner next year is probably going to be Isaiah Rodgers, who they already have him in the fold. They signed him suspended for gambling, but he's going to be back. Another, as what you're saying, short area quickness. That's what they're looking for, short area quickness in the slot. That's what the Eagles are looking for. And that's as you mentioned, typically. Now, a lot of people went back.
By the way, I do like Rasul Douglas.
So do I.
That they didn't give him.
I said, and I told Jody, if he could have held on in the transition to Jim Schwartz to Jonathan Gannon, I think he would have been a perfect fit for this defense outside because he's got great ball skills. He's great zone corner. I think he would have succeeded. But they've gone in a different direction. Ultimately, they get Bradbury. But that first year, you think about, they had Steven Nelson, who's a good player, solid player, having a good year in Houston, by the way. If that would have been Rasul, I think he would have been successful. And I think he would have been able to continue his career in Philadelphia. But obviously, they had already decided to move on by that point. So I think he's a good player. Not a great player, but I think he's a solid player. Certainly an NFL player, and he's got a chance in Buffalo to play on a really good team, and we'll see how that shakes out. But yeah, they want to get to the point where it's Bradley Roby. They would love Avante to be out there. We wouldn't be even talking about this. And next year, it's probably going to be Rodgers. They want to get to that point. And they've thrown, since we'll start there, they've thrown 8 different bodies in there, Mike, in 8 games. That ain't good. And I think when people look at all the issues they had in Washington with the quick passing game, you had Byard, his first game as an Eagle. You had Blankenship coming off an injury, first game back. You had the slot corner was going to be Sidney Brown on, base downs to make it easier, and then Eli Ricks and known passing situations. Is there any surprise there were communication issues? They got to settle this thing down at some point.
Right. That was the first thing I brought up on my show Monday was you got Kevin Byard back there. You got a new slot guy in there, probably as you mentioned, the 6th or 7th different guy. You would imagine that Byard, and I would also follow up with this question, and I don't know if anybody asked Sean Desai. I didn't read through the whole transcript, but did they have to scale anything back because of Byard? Like, did they just have a very basic coverage package in this week because Byard basically had one day of practice? I know he got here early, but as Jody chronicled, they don't do anything in practice. They might have had to walk through. Maybe he's in a study hall, but I don't know how many reps he got in an actual practice so I'm wondering if they scaled any coverage back or really vanillaed it a lot for him this week. And I do agree that I would imagine you talk to any corner safety, that communication. I mean, I'm sure Byard and the guy playing the slot probably didn't even know each other's names when they got there, let alone their faces so I would think, look, this is such a week-to-week thing. They had a bad week against the Commanders. 2 weeks before that, they gave up 10 points to the best offense in the league. Yeah. So I think we have to keep it in perspective of when they're playing well, they're really good. And when they don't play well, you saw what happens. But generally, over 17 weeks, some weeks you're not going to play that well. And last week was one of them.
All right, so let me set an over-under. I didn't do well with this last week with the sacks because I thought the Eagles were going to get a lot of sacks against Washington. Didn't come close on that one. I'm going to set the over-under I'll go 123.5 since it's less than 125. Don't want them going past the 125 that A.J. Brown gets every single week. 123.5 yards for C.D. Lamb because it sounds to me like the Eagles are just throwing stuff at the wall in the slot corner defensive position and hoping it sticks. And it didn't really stick last week against Sam Howell. So now you got Dak Prescott and C.D. Lamb coming in here, who is a legitimate slot wide receiver, maybe the best slot wide receiver in the entire National Football League. 123 yards receiving, 123.5 for C.D. Lamb. You taking the under or the over?
I would be inclined to say on Wednesday that I would take the over on that. And I say
that's not good, Mike.
No, but they gave up 11 catches, 88 yards to Tyreek Hill. Now, I would imagine if he got 11 catches, generally he would have got more yards out of that. I was surprised it was 88, but I thought the Eagles did a good job of tackling. C.D. Lamb, as you mentioned, does a lot more in the slot, and I don't know that the tackling in that area is going to be as good. So while he might get a lot of yards, if you look at their numbers, their second leading receiver in terms of receptions is Jake Ferguson. Somewhere down that list, you've got Brandon Cooks and Michael Gallup. I mean, they have 20 catches, those two guys. We talk about A.J. Brown and the amount of catches he gets here. So if the Eagles are inclined, they might say, hey, you're going to catch 11 balls for 125 yards, but you're the only guy going to be doing anything in this offense. So I would take the over there. And much like Hill, he had 88 yards. He ended up scoring a touchdown, but that's the only score they got all day, really.
Yeah, I mean, here's the Cowboys receivers. C.D. Lamb, 46 receptions, 633 yards. Everybody else, 49, 517. So, I mean,
I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe it because people keep saying about A.J. Brown, it's too A.J. Brown centric. I said, well, last week, Devonta Smith had like 7 for 100 almost.
Yeah,
in
99,
that game.
Right?
It just kind of goes under the radar because Brown has done something historical. Dallas has nobody approaching what Devonta Smith has done. They are, somebody joked that the Eagles have two plays, the brotherly shove and throw it to A.J. Brown. And someone on my show called in and said, well, Dallas has one. Throw it to CeeDee Lamb or throw it to the other team. That's basically.
Ooh, shot on Zach Dak score.
They're
good listeners, right?
Yeah, CeeDee's very good. Here's my concern about the Eagles defense, and hat tip to our buddy Paul Domowitz. He had that. He's breaking down the game for a stat package here. We all know what the Eagles defense is designed to do. Nick Sirianni says it 10 times a year. Limit explosive plays. They want to win the explosive play battle, and they want to win the turnover battle. If you do that, you win the football game. Statistically, that turns out to be true. The Eagles have been able to persevere with some turnovers and giving up explosive plays. So the Eagles gave up 11 receptions of 15 or more yards against Washington. That makes 56 on the year, and that's what they determine as an explosive play, throwing the football. Last season, they gave up 75 the entire season. Now, to your point, Mike, Washington, it was the quick passing game. So they're not tackling after that. That's a big concern. Against Tyreek Hill, for the most part, as you mentioned, 11 receptions, 88 yards. So Jody's over-under is good. If he goes over, that means they're not tackling well. If he goes under, he's still going to get 10 catches. Yeah. But if it's 10 for 90, you can live with that. If it's 10 for 150, then you got problems.
That's the, and the comparison was Hill was 11 for 88, where I thought they did a good job tackling. And remember, that was a mismatched secondary. I mean, they had two safeties in there that are not on the field right now. Different corner guy, slot guy, whatever you want to call him. So yeah, you would think Kevin Byard, a much better tackler, Blankenship, that those tackles wouldn't be missed. But last week I thought they did a poor job of making the initial stop after the short, quick catch. And the last time they played Washington, the same thing. I don't know what it is about those burgundy uniforms that just can't seem, for whatever reason, they match up well.
They're colorblind to burgundy, I guess.
There you go. The
got to be able to tackle the burgundy. All right, the numbers you threw out there were kind of telling about the Cowboys and their passing game, that it's kind of CeeDee Lamb or bust. How are the Cowboys the number 2 scoring team in the National Football League with such unbalanced passing numbers? They're 28 points a game. They're number 2 in the entire league. Mm-hmm. Is their rushing game that good?
How are they going? Tony Pollard's a pretty good player. As you mentioned, as Mike mentioned, would be the tight end would be the number 2 receiver, really. And we saw
they've also had some games where they scored like 40, and you could have a game where CeeDee Lamb has a monster game and you score 40. So their scoring, I think, is a little tough to.
Well, here's the thing. When the Cowboys, I think I said this yesterday on the show, and so I'll ask you both. When they bring their A game, they beat the brakes off people.
Yeah.
But they're not consistent. Then they'll show up the next week and have really. Now, everybody, the Eagles, as we just pointed out, play great one week, play poorly the next, but they find ways to win games. The Cowboys are more susceptible to the ugly hiccup. But when they play well, so, it's almost you got to feel, are they going to bring their A game? If they bring their A game, they're going to be tough to deal with.
They are. And I think one of the things, I might have mentioned it on here, the difference for me between a Philly, San Francisco, Dallas, San Francisco's obviously struggling right now. I think they got some injury issues that they got to get through. But ultimately the difference between those three, I mean, if you want to throw Detroit in there, I don't know that we have a big enough resume on what Detroit is, but over the last 3 seasons where it's been Philly, San Fran, and Dallas, I think the biggest difference is Philly's mentally tough. They are physically and mentally tough. Dallas has not shown a propensity to be physically and mentally tough week to week. They're great when things are going good. It's a party over there. It's, woohoo, watch us. But when you got to get into a fist fight with them, they don't like to scrap a whole heck of a lot. They like to throw the haymakers. And Philly doesn't mind getting into a 24-10 game, 17-7. I think Dallas, that's where they struggle. They'll have a party when it's a high scoring back and forth, but are they physically and mentally tough enough? I think there's your difference. These two rosters are both very deep and talented. I think the edge goes to Philly in terms of depth and talent, but they're close. But mentally tough, Philly wins that.
And physically tough. I agree with you there.
Tough, yes.
Here's one issue that I have with the opposition this week, and it's pointed directly at maybe best owner in the history of the National Football League when it comes to business, not necessarily football. Jerry Jones last week came out and said, yeah, we won't be making any calls. We don't need to make any calls. We're very happy with our roster. We're good where our roster is. Really? Jerry, you're looking up at the Eagles in the standings and you're telling the world that you're perfectly fine. You don't need to do anything. That's why I give Howie Roseman credit with the deal that he made last week for Bayard. The Eagles don't sit on their laurels. And the Cowboys, I don't think, have laurels to sit on to begin with, but Jerry seems to be doing that. Do you think that has a measure of why they're not mentally tough enough?
Well,
because the owner says, oh, we're good. We don't need to make any trades. If somebody calls, yeah, well, maybe we'll pick up the phone, but we don't have to do anything. We're perfectly fine. Really, Jerry?
You look at what happened this week. Eagles went and got Bayard. Seattle went out and got Leonard Williams. Seattle's in this mix, by the way. They're in first place in the West.
They are.
They're in the mix. And San Francisco went out and got Chase Young. Dallas sat and watched everybody. So, yeah, the last couple of years this has happened, though, where Philly's gone out and make a move. San Francisco, they went out and got Christian McCaffrey last year.
Yeah, don't forget Detroit got a receiver. Everybody, all the contenders got something.
Yeah, and Dallas has perpetually stayed quiet at this deadline here. And what's the messaging inside that locker room? Man, we've been right there with everybody. And then they all went out and did something, and here we are. So, yeah, I definitely think that plays in why Dallas. Look, the Dallas thing, too, is we're in the Philly market where this team is number one. They got so many people. But Dallas also has to deal with the pressure of constantly being talked about every single week. If they win, they're the greatest. They got to deal with that the whole way. You're the best. They're back in the Super Bowl thing when maybe they really shouldn't be. We're not in that market every day to deal with that. But I got to imagine that's not easy to constantly deal with either. That when you win, and they win handily a lot, you're a Super Bowl contender again. You go from, that stinks, he's terrible, to, they're a Super Bowl contender again.
Wait, Mike, you don't think that happens right here in Philadelphia?
Oh, yeah, no.
Do you listen to WIP at all? Come on. It's the markets aren't all that different. Same thing. You go from the great.
I think what Mike is saying, and correct me if I'm wrong, in this market, their market is the entire country.
Correct.
They're the New York Yankees of football.
The Eagles are not on the debate shows every day, whether you like those shows or take them serious or not. There are people that sit there, and every day Dallas is the topic. Are they a Super Bowl contender again? It's not, are the Eagles a Super Bowl contender? Is Dallas a Super Bowl contender? And they've got to deal with that every place they go. And I'm not trying to make excuses for them. Boo-hoo for them. This is what they created. But that is something that other teams don't deal with, is that they are constantly put on a pedestal that they probably don't belong on.
And maybe the Eagles are on that pedestal now, but it's earned from the Eagles' perspective. They're a legitimate contender. Obviously, they were a legitimate contender last year. They got the best record again this year. With the Cowboys, how I always describe it, because of their status, whatever you want to call it, they're always, no matter how good they are, they might be really good, but people think they're a little bit better than they are. Always. If they're mediocre, they think they're better. If they're bad, they think they're better, just a little bit. And if they're good, now during the Jimmy Johnson era, it didn't matter because they were just better than everybody else. But they're always sort of Notre Dame in college football, same thing. Always people think they're a little bit better than they really are. And there's always whether it's the Lakers in basketball, there's that team in every sport. Might be the Celtics.
Are you saying that it infects their owner right now?
Oh
Because
God, yeah.
I couldn't believe what he said last week.
Oh
Yeah,
God.
we're good. We won't be making any calls. Really, Jerry? You're not 7-0 here, big guy.
It infects the entire organization. That's when, whether you look at the Jimmy Johnson Cowboys or you look at the Derek Jeter Yankees, or you look at the Magic, the Showtime Lakers, or the Kobe Shaq Lakers. When they're so good they can overcome all that crap, that tells you you're seeing something special. But it's always there. It's always there. And it's real. I agree with Mike. It's definitely real. They get more hype than they deserve, typically.
Then here's my next question. Shame on Mike McCarthy for letting that infect the locker room? You're saying the players have to carry that. The players have to deal with that. You really going to let Skip Bayless?
I'm not blaming the coach because it's out of the coach's realm. Doesn't matter who the coach is. Doesn't matter
the coach has no control over the
Jason Garrett. No, every single coach, Barry Switzer, go all the way back, Dave Campo, every single one of them, they got to deal with the same thing. Manager of the New York Yankees, got to deal with it. Coach of the Los Angeles Lakers, got to deal with it. It's just part of it, part of the job description. It's not going away. Do you have good players who are able to handle it? And the Cowboys got a bunch of good players.
Well, and that's where I talk about mentally. They're not mentally tough. Is that they do listen to the outside noise. It's only human nature to do it. And yeah, the coach could say the message, hey, they're all going to talk about us, but we got to block that. You're on TV all day, every day, that team. That you turn around and watch TV. Is Dallas a Super Bowl contender again? I mean, they win 40. They beat the Rams. Look, the Rams are a blah. They're just another NFL team. They're with everybody else. They're stuck in the middle. They're good one week. They stink the next. And you beat them 44 to whatever the score was. Great.
And by the way, you guys are on the radio.
Super Bowl contender. Blowing the Rams out doesn't mean you went from you have questions losing to Arizona one week to, hey, we beat the Rams. Now you're a Super Bowl contender. But they look at the screen and say, oh, are we a Super Bowl contender again? Maybe we are.
Yeah. I mean, you guys are on the radio every day, basically. And Philadelphia has sort of a little brother complex to the Cowboys because of all this over the years, going back to all the way back to Tom Landry and Roger Staubach. And how many times do you guys hear, it drives me nuts, oh, the Eagles don't get the respect on national TV. The announcers hate the Eagles, whatever. And ironically, NFL Films is at Mount Laurel, and so many people that work for NFL Films are Eagles fans, and so many analysts are Eagles fans. It's the exact opposite. And since in this century, so, pretty big sample size at this point, 2023, no team has been on national TV more than the Philadelphia Eagles, except one, the Dallas Cowboys. But here's where the Eagles have generally been good.
Don't want to give the opposition credit, John, but since you went there, they earn it. Yes. They might not earn it with their one-loss record, but they track the ratings, and guess what? Dallas comes on, the needle moves. So we can say all we want about the Cowboys and not having mental toughness, and, oh, my God, they have to carry the burden of over-coverage by the national media. For whatever reason, Cowboys are on national TV, the ratings spike up. So
and by the way, the Eagles do the same thing, but the Eagles are on national TV.
As big as the Cowboys. Nobody moves the needle like the Dallas Cowboys.
That's the point. But number 2 in this century has been the Philadelphia Eagles. The difference is the Eagles have to be good to get on national television. And everybody, that could be anybody.
The most watched game this season, though, Eagles-Jets.
Yeah. Oh, that's because of the Jets. You don't want to go there. You don't want to go there, Gill. The 2 most watched games this year both include the Jets. The Jets are the needle mover, not the Eagles.
I think four of the top five now are Jets. The NFL just sent out the new list. I'll try to find it. They sent it out yesterday, I think. The top 44 of the top 50 television shows are NFL games so far this year. And I believe the Jets are in four of the top five. That was the Aaron Rodgers effect, and people are just immersed in it. But I think as they continue to see Zach
that
Wilson
is like
play.
bizarre to me. Like, are there people out there that are so casual of football fans that they think Rodgers is still playing? Are they watching the game or following?
I don't think.
You saw the Jets beat the Eagles, right, Mike Gill?
Right,
the Jets are actually a fascinating team. They're a very imperfect team, but they're a fascinating team.
Oh, 1,000%. But generally what generates big ratings is a star. Aaron Rodgers isn't there. Like, at some point you would think the casual fan, why would you be interested in this Jets team?
All right, here it is. Top 5 games. Week 1, NBC, obviously, Detroit, Kansas City was 26.9 million. Kansas City Jets, 26.2.
KC.
Bengals 49ers 26.1. So they did a big number for that game. Eagles Jets 26.1, just a little bit below the other and fourth, and Jets Cowboys 25.9.
And that was a massacre. I guarantee you that number went down as the game went on because the Cowboys just crushed the Jets. People had to get away from that one in droves.
44 of the top 50 TV shows since the start of the 2023 TV season have been NFL games. And by the way, Cowboys Eagles at 425. That Sunday will be in the top 5 next week.
Right. And listen, the Jets are in New York. It's a lot, but it's not like the Jets historically have been a big draw.
No.
So just to say, well, they're in the biggest, I see somebody in the chat saying they're the biggest media market. It's not like the Jets are perpetually some great television draw.
No.
This is the bizarre thing to me is that, they got Aaron Rodgers. And I, Jody Mack, thought that they were going to be the AFC representative in the Super Bowl with that defense and Wilson and Rodgers and Hall. But they don't have Aaron Rodgers. What the hell are you watching them for? I mean, we always say.
I don't know how people stuck through that Jets-Giants game. I don't know what the ratings were for that, but man,
that didn't make the top 5. I
bless those people. And that's the biggest media market against the biggest media market.
Right.
And it was the worst game in the history of
football. NFL has made every rule to try to help out the offense. And offenses stink in this league. It's painful to watch offenses play in this league.
You know why? And you're going to see it this week, even more so, with Clayton Tune and Jaron Hall are going to start NFL games. Now, Jody's talking about the Jets and Giants. Zach Wilson is Otto Graham compared to Tommy DeVito. And
you don't want to get me started on that.
Do most of the people watching this show right now even know what team Jaron Hall and Clayton Tune are about to start for?
Probably not, unless they're paying attention to.
I give them 1 out. I give them 1 out of 2 on the guess.
Maybe because
I will say this. Let's see. I think I brought this up with you before, Mike Gill, and I think you disagree with me as my partner does. But if I die on this hill, so be it. I believe that at the beginning of the year, the NFL, off the record with their officials, said, listen, we're catching some flack here. We're giving the guy with too many penalty flags. Nobody wants to see a pass interference flag. It's the criticism we hear. You got to watch the play, and then you got to look to the screen where the flag little yellow thing pops up to see if maybe we cut him a little slack on the back end defensively. We let the corners play a little defensively. If it's a split second he gets there before the ball gets there, don't just, if it's a blatant, you got to throw the flag because they're going to show a replay on television. You're going to look like an idiot for not having called pass interference. But if it's at the same time, damn close to say, let him play. I watch a lot of games. I watch the red zone on Sundays. And there were a lot of plays that weren't being called that I thought, just judging by my own eye, what's a pass interference, what's not a pass interference over the last several years in the NFL, they were letting it go. I really did believe that. And I thought it was a directive directly from the league. I'll tell you what, this past weekend, they went back to dropping the flags. And I think it had something to do with what you just pointed out. They got too many games. The Jets and the Giants, as ugly as that was, they're going, now, wait a minute. We didn't say we want to get it down to 13-10 games. We want to let them play a little defense, but we got to keep the overall scoring up. I think there's been another directive from the league that they got to go back to calling pass interference.
I just think there is a way where you, like, for example, the roughing the passer penalty. It's egregious sometimes. It's so bad. I don't mind if the official throws the flag and says, we want to look at whether this was a roughing the passer. There was somebody pushed, somebody fell. Let's throw the flag. And that signifies start looking at that play immediately. And then they can call out and say, nah, there's not enough there. That penalty keeps drives alive, that stuff. There was a penalty in the game last week against the Eagles. It helped the Eagles out against Brandon Graham for like a low block on the opposite side of the field. They ran the other way. It had nothing to do with the play. Why you call that? Why? Why is that penalty? It has nothing to do with the play. It's not
safety, Mike. Safety. Yeah.
But Jody's point is, like, you would tell these guys, look, let the guys play. If the penalty is a minute penalty on the opposite side of the field, these 5-yard holdings, when the throw goes to the right side and the guy's being held on the left side of the field, and I don't understand. To me, many of these officials, I'd love to sit in a room with them and just talk football. I don't think they have any clue about the game. I really don't. I think a lot of these guys.
I'm the only person in the world that defends those guys. And
Listen,
I've said it on your show. People don't hate the officials. They hate the legislation.
I know that. But I think a lot of them don't even – I don't think they legislate it the right way. I just I don't think they have – like, for instance, I do play-by-play, okay? When you have a producer who has sports background, they have a feel for tell the camera guy to go there. Let's get this shot. When you have a producer who's a producer, but he's not a sports guy, he doesn't have that intuition. He doesn't have that feel of this is the moment, get the crowd. I feel like that's the officials. They don't have the intuition of this play. This penalty has nothing to do with this play. I'm just going to let it go.
Yeah. I'm always amazed because I'm amazed how much shit they get right, to be honest, because the toe tap, I'm like, oh, there's no way this guy's in. And they call him in and you look at the oh, damn, he's in. And they did it in real time. I'm kind of amazed at how good they are.
In that, dude.
I think people hate the legislation. I hate the legislation. If they threw everything on you, Mike, and said, oh, you got to do this, you got to look for this, you got to do this, and everything's just subjective, and you're still a human being. Last time I checked, you're going to blow calls. I think that's baked into the game. That's where every coach in the world has told me, control what you can control. You're going to get screwed. Jody knows I rarely complain about officiating. I just don't. To me, it's useless. Number one.
Agreed.
And number two, there's nothing you can do about it. So you either persevere or you don't. Everybody's got to persevere through
Jacksonville last week. It's not good when now the player from Jacksonville came flat out and said the refs wanted Pittsburgh to win the game. He flat out came out and said they wanted Pittsburgh to win the game. Whether that's true or not, you are at a point now where your officiating is so bad that the players are coming out and saying, we think the officials wanted Pittsburgh to win the game. Now, I hear this all the time from Dallas fans. Dallas perpetual, a lot of fans, but Dallas fans. The refs killed us. If there was any team in the entire league that the NFL wants to win and have the refs on their side, as Jody chronicled, it's Dallas.
Well, here in Philadelphia, I'll throw this to – I'm not going to say it can't happen because Tim Donaghy exists. So, again – somebody could fix a game if they wanted to fix a game, do something untoward. But I don't think it's consistent in any way. I don't think anybody – and here in Philadelphia, a lot of Phillies fans said, "Oh boy, baseball must be upset to have the Arizona Diamondbacks and the Texas Rangers in the World Series." And sure enough, the TV ratings are down because it's not a great matchup. So on the back end of that, well, then why would baseball want the Diamondbacks and Rangers? The umpires make mistakes, of course. Strike zone drives me nuts, like it drives everybody nuts. They make mistakes all the time. But no, they don't. And to use your point, and I don't know who that was in Jacksonville, but they didn't want Pittsburgh to win. Could there be an outlier, Tim Donaghy, who's in trouble because he gambled away? I guess, but come on.
By the way,
worry
Mike,
about your team.
if
Worry
you
about
do
your
know,
team.
Mike, who was the guy from Jacksonville? Are we talking about a backup defensive tackle, or if it wasn't Trevor Lawrence, or
I think it was a wide receiver or maybe a corner.
And he's probably emotional after the game. Yeah,
I'm not going to put any stock into that because he said it just.
I'm not putting stock in the fact, but my point.
No, I know what you're saying.
There's
You're
a player out there
think
who's expressed that he thinks that that's a possibility. Now, to your point on the Tim Donaghy thing, how many officials officiate a game every single week? What's the background on these guys? Who knows what Joe Schmo's doing Monday? This is the whole thing with they're not full-time guys. They have jobs. We don't know what these guys are doing. We have no idea what's in their mind.
That I agree with. There should be more accountability. Like, one of the problems, the only problem I have with officiating, if you blow a big call in a big spot and somebody loses a game and doesn't make the playoffs, people's lives are affected. Coaches get fired, support staff gets fired, players essentially get fired by being released. It affects a lot of people. And if you blow calls consistently, there's no that I agree with.
That is the biggest, I think, the perception in all sports. There's no accountability for being not good at your job. We all have accountability generally, about if you do something that's perpetually not good. An official consistently gets calls wrong. What's the penalty? We never hear from this guy. We just see him the next week making more calls.
Yeah, like Angel Hernandez. Yeah, he should be out the door. But
give the Major League Baseball umpires this much. They got one of the best unions.
Yeah, they have a tremendous union
on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
So they do get away with that stuff. All right, Gill, we're way over time. Here's the only thing I need from you. I'm going to make a prediction that after the game, the Eagles versus the Cowboys this week, there's going to be fans that are going to blame it on the ref. Either way, doesn't matter how the game goes. Eagles win, true. Cowboys win. Yeah. There's going to be a percentage fan go, we were screwed by the referees. So that's my prediction. I need a different prediction from you. Eagles will either do this, and it'll be the reason why they win, or the Eagles will do that, and it'll be the reason that they lose. Fill in one of the two blanks. What either concerns you, and this could cost the Eagles game, or a matchup that you like the Eagles that they have, and that's the reason why they're going to win the game. Which blank you're choosing to fill in, and how you filling it in.
I'm glad you asked me this question, because this week I think we're going to see the Eagles go back to road grading, running the football, demoralizing Dallas, running.
Kenny Gainwell, is this a Kenny Gainwell week?
No, it's a DeAndre
the coach
Swift
back his
game.
stance on Kenny Gainwell. I can't bench him because then I have to bench everybody every time they made a mistake. Is this a Kenny Gainwell breakout week, Mike Gill?
No, it's a Swift game. And by the way, I wouldn't even be surprised if we didn't see a lot of Gainwell. That whole thing with the IG, I think there should be more on that. That's preposterous. You're on Instagram.
I didn't bring up the end at halftime. Yeah,
at halftime. That's ridiculous. But still, 35 carries, big game. They run it out, 200 yards. Dallas is just huffing and puffing, bending over, thinking we just got our asses whipped up front. And there's your difference in the game.
You know why I like the IG thing? We're way over. But you know why I like it, Mike? Because it proves to people, they're not doing shit at halftime except checking their phones, taking a pee, and having an orange slice.
They're making adjustments.
Nobody's sitting there on the chalkboard.
They're making adjustments.
Throwing the game plan out and making
halftime adjustments.
Yeah.
Maybe it's time for a coach to take charge and actually say, let's see if we can get just something discussed during the half. That would be my way to look at it. Mike, always a pleasure. Who's West Virginia play this week?
Oklahoma.
Who we
Yeah.
got? We got t-shirts. What is that?
I got
Penn?
University of Penn. I'm a Quaker
Yeah, all right.
today.
Penn.
Okay.
I
Actually, West
believe-
Virginia does not play Oklahoma this week. I think
I
Bedlam's
believe you were at the Wharton School from 2004 to 2006, I believe.
I stepped foot on the campus.
Yeah, you meandered over there after going to God damn it, why can't I think of the great sports building that's right there next to the Penn campus? I'm thinking
Palestra?
of Palestra. I had a
Yeah.
brain fart there.
Right.
Yeah.
Franklin Field.
Had his
Franklin-
eighth beer at
Franklin
beer
Field?
at the Palestra, and unfortunately
Yeah.
thought he parked near the Wharton School.
Oh, like West
Gill
Virginia,
ended
West
up over
Virginia
there.
plays. West Virginia plays BYU. They play Oklahoma next week.
All right.
Okay.
Smoky
Yeah.
Joe's. Does that still exist? That was a great bar down by Penn. I don't know if it's still there, but hopefully.
Yeah, I won't be texting you about this week, Mike. But you and I both had West Virginia out last weekend. Mike Gill, thank you very much. He's the host of the Sports Bash on 97.3 Down the Shore, ESPN Radio, and he sucks McClellan into joining him every single week.
Yeah,
Much
by
like
the
me.
way, Xander's probably mad at us.
We're way late. Let's take a break. Come back. Chris Franklin yet to join us. Lots to do on Birds 365.